iScrappers, Tom from the iScrap app. Today is Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. We hope that everyone is doing well, staying busy, and scrapping often. We are looking at these markets, and we're going to talk about them in a little while. A couple things that we want to talk about. Yes, we're going to talk about the coronavirus. Yes, we're going to talk about copper. But one of the biggest things that we've seen over the last week are the oil prices, and we're definitely going to talk about those as well. If you were a Patreon supporter of ours, you would have seen some of these pieces of news coming across our news feed over the last few days. So if you're not a supporter, make sure you join and you'll be able to get some up-to-date pieces of news on all different commodity markets throughout the week and the month. Let's talk right about what we were just talking about, those oil prices. On Friday and Saturday, those two different days combined, we saw the oil market drop 30% in pricing. Now, we've talked about this multiple times in the past, where when the oil prices fall, the gas prices fall, and that's great for the gas pump. But it's bad for commodities because that means that it's cheaper to move steel, iron, copper, and other raw materials. You have cheaper gas prices, it costs less to put money into the vehicles, the overhead is less, the moving expenses are less, and generally the prices will go down along with it. So, with the oil prices down, in the past we've always used the oil prices to track a lot of the steel pricing, but it hasn't exactly correlated, one goes up, the other goes up over the last few years. One thing that we do expect are some of these steel prices to pull back a little more with a little bit of a weaker market. Not only because of the coronavirus, but because of these oil markets and a lot of the uncertainty that we've seen overall in these worldwide markets right now. Look at some of the crazy things that are going on. Over 100,000 cases, 3,000 people dead from the coronavirus, Italy closing its borders essentially, the United States stopping flights to China. We've seen so many things going on in the last month that many of us have never seen or really remember in our lifetimes. You know, we've seen wars happen, we've seen stock crises, we've seen the market go up, the market go down, and we've seen political tensions. But talking about something that involves every single person and nation in the world is not something that comes about every year, and we're fortunate for that. So while we're watching these markets, we're really paying attention to what's going on not only in our current system here in the US, but also throughout the world. All of these domino effects, which we've highlighted over the last 2 weeks, really have a cause and effect that's going to affect global demand for materials, short-term and potentially long-term, depending on how long this thing goes. Look at some of the craziness that's going on right now. Colleges are having students go home for the rest of the second semester doing digital classes online instead of in-person classes. You see schools canceling trips. Some teachers are teaching remotely. Some teachers are teaching their younger students through the internet. And what you have is this crazy domino effect where parents need to go to work. And now they have to have their kids home from school. Where do the kids go? Who's going to watch them? You have other people that work in larger corporations that are being told to stay home, quarantine themselves for 14 days minimum. You see political parties having some of their leaders quarantining themselves. And throughout the world, this is something that I've never seen in my lifetime or really remember happening. I know that there's been the H1N1, SARS, and other different diseases that have affected and killed multiple people, but this is one of those crazy things where we're in the here and now, in the middle of it. Hopefully we're getting closer to the end of it, as we have seen some of the cases in China starting to dip down and slow the course. Copper prices over this time, we're very happy considering what's happened. Yes, they're down 35 to 40 cents since the beginning of February, and that's a really big chunk of change. But when you look at some of the madness that is going on in the overall markets, we'll take about a 16% pullback. Alone this week, we've seen 3 different days out of 3 with 1,000-point swings, up and down. Monday, trading stopped on the U.S. stock market for 15 minutes because it triggered a fail-safe at a 5% loss. So when we see 2,000-point drops, 1,000-point gains, up 800, down to 0, back up 1100, down 800, down 1500. Of course, we're not always paying attention to the stock market as much as we are the commodities market, but it still is pretty crazy when you look at everything that's going on. Now, we've seen the reported scrap prices coming through the iScrap app, as many of you have downloaded the iScrap app to your iPhones and Droids, and you're able to update these prices very often. Now, we've been watching these prices over the last few weeks, and they have really altered quickly. Just on Monday morning when we woke up and we saw copper down 10 cents. Now, it didn't end down 10 cents, it ended down 5 cents, but the fear of that big drop leads scrapyards such as ours here in New Jersey to have real concerns on where the market is going to go, not wanting to commit to future purchases as these markets are changing so rapidly. Steel, like we talked about, is going to be a little bit of a dicey subject over the next few weeks. Here we are almost at the middle of March already, and while the markets have been kind of steady over this time, which has been very surprising, we are seeing little bits of weakening coming in, little cracks in the armor, and we're hoping that it doesn't fall apart and really hit the floor too hard. Overall, these markets, they have been very difficult to gauge, but we're watching them, paying attention to them, and you have seen all types of pullbacks, both in the precious metals and the commodities markets. Now, if we talk about catalytic converters, you know that we're going to talk about rrcats.com, rrcats.com, and those three major metals, rhodium, palladium, and platinum, have also seen little bits of pullback. Rhodium pulled itself back and then bounced back over $13,000 an ounce. We've seen the palladium market just today drop down 5%, and platinum has remained below $900 an ounce, where we were hovering close to $1,000 a short 2 weeks ago. So if you're looking to cash in your catalytic converter, you can always use our service where you send a picture or a serial number, and we'll make sure to give you some updated pricing on those items today. Now, we're closely paying attention, reading articles, talking to large industrial accounts, talking to traders, and we are just watching the news to see what different pieces of information come up and come down. Whether it's the presidential election, news on the coronavirus, oil prices dropping, rebounding, dropping again, or the stock market moving all over the place, not even in a roller coaster type of a way anymore. Kind of like, you're in a box and someone's just shaking the thing around. That's kind of how we feel right now with all these different markets that are going on. If you have any comments, questions, ideas, or anything that relates to the scrap metal markets, we love to hear the information that you have. Comment below this video, post on our Facebook page, email us at info@iscrapapp.com, but always tune in every Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where we like to give you an update on what the market is doing. For any of you that have been affected or family members affected by the virus, we wish you nothing but the best. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. And it looks like we have a quick question before we sign out.
Yep. Corey asked, any updates on aluminum?
Corey, the aluminum market has been flat this year, which is a good thing, but with a lot of these fears going on and the tariffs still being instituted on many of the aluminum markets, we haven't seen any of it change. We know that a lot of people are holding on to a lot of material, and we recommend cashing it in, as it doesn't look like anything's going to happen, certainly before this presidential election. iScrappers, this is Tom from the iScrap app. Today is Wednesday, March 11th, 2020. We welcome your thoughts. We look forward to your comments. Make sure you post your prices at iScrapapp.com. And until next week, I'll scrap you later.